Hey everyone, it's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. I'm going to jump right into it. And this video is going to be about a topic we've been discussing on this platform for quite some time, and that's homelessness in the city. And this is going to be about a specific incident that took place at Springside Park. So this past Friday at Springside Park, on October 28th, a fire broke out at one of the encampments for those living inside Springside Park. Now, whose campsite this one was, I don't know. No one is saying. So I went up there along with a city councilor yesterday and toured that whole section of the park. And as we were walking up there, heading towards the main encampment, we were finding clothing, trash. I found a sharps box with used hypodermic needles in it. And then we worked our way up to the campsite, which a gentleman by the name of David, one of the residents there, came out, was very friendly, very cordial, talked to us, showed us around, and told us what happened. So he was at his campsite, saw the fire up about 100 feet or so away from his site, if that, fairly close to where he was, saw the fire and realized it was starting to grow, got concerned, and ran up the hill. He had grabbed a machete that he had, and he ran up the hill and used the machete to try to clear all the dried leaves and sticks and all the kindling, because that's what it is, laying around on the ground, and yelled down to the campsite where he is, to other people that were there, for them to dial 911 and call the fire department, which they did. David was able to clear most of the leaves and things around to stop the fire from spreading, but then there were some explosions. They were cooking with a small grill with a propane tank on it that exploded, some aerosol cans that exploded. David did receive burns on his arms, but he did decline treatment and said that they were fine and he was okay with that. He was treating it himself. It was very disturbing to hear the story, to see the site, to, walking through there, and you're in almost ankle deep in dried leaves. Everything is very dry. The park, that could have been an absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. That could have even taken people's lives that are staying in there. So we're very fortunate that David was able to get that out, and they did the right thing and they called for help. I was so concerned, and it was heartbreaking to see that people are living like this in there, to see the condition of Springside Park, to look at the small little brook that I played around when I was a kid in there, and to see that it's being used to wash clothes now, and there was debris in it. Well, here, take a look at some of the photos. Now, I'm going to be clear on this. The photo with the needles in the sharps box was not in their campsite. It was on the path up to it, and it was just randomly laying there in the woods. And there were needles in other spots as well. But I just want to be clear on that, because David said, look, there's 4 of them staying there, that they're not drug addicts, they don't have a problem with substance abuse or anything like that. Now, that's what he said. And again, he was very cordial. When I asked him specifically, has anyone from ServiceNet, our service provider, been up here recently and contacted you? And he said, not this year. That not only was concerning, it was infuriating to hear that. Because if you remember, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, the mayor did her little infomercial, and one of the representatives from ServiceNet spoke and said, we're regularly checking on all the encampments, asking people, is there anything they need, can we help them? And he said they haven't seen anybody up there in quite some time. Now, I met this individual, David, in that park almost 2.5 years ago, July of 2020, when ServiceNet abruptly closed down the emergency shelter at St. Joe's, and it was closed for 4.5 months or so, however long before they reopened it, and caused this whole situation specifically at Springside. Now, I know there's encampments popping up all over the city. I've seen them, I've visited them. I regularly go to a lot of the encampments to check on people. I do know that, Onoda Street, Wacona Street, there's tents and things showing up right on the sides of the roads, and I get that. But this is about Springside, because when ServiceNet abruptly closed that shelter and said that the Diocese of Springfield was evicting them, that they had to be out by August 1st of that year, and the mayor put out a statement saying that also, they threw out all the belongings of the guests that were staying there and caused Springside Park to flood with people. And this main encampment has grown since then. And the people staying there now, at least with David, the one person we spoke to, that's when he arrived there. So that's very disturbing to me, that no one has done any follow-through with that. David did say that he wanted to thank the mayor for allowing them to be there. I just let him speak freely, because I feel horrible for this person and the people living there. I don't think they understand themselves that coming into winter, this is not a situation that they need or should be in. It was heartbreaking to see that human beings, fellow residents, are living like that in the middle of our park. And it was heartbreaking to see that happening to Springside Park, one of the most historical and oldest city parks, a place where I spent a lot of time as a child. So, it's unacceptable on so many levels. When I spoke to David and asked him about staying at the shelter or getting an apartment, there was some hesitancy there. And there's a lot of distrust with that shelter based off of what happened to them when it was closed down, based off of things that they've said that happened in there, the violence, the drug use, stolen, having belongings and property stolen. And this, granted, there's two sides to every story, and I get that. But this is just speaking to them and allowing him to speak. And, I get that there's a hesitancy to give up the last thing you have left, and that's some semblance of independence. But at the same time, that is a dangerous situation for them to be living in the park. It's dangerous for them coming into winter. It's dangerous for the park. I mean, that fire could have turned into something catastrophic. There is so much dried leaves and everything around. It could have burned down a whole section of that park, and it very well could have. Thank God that was able to be contained the way it was. And people could have been seriously hurt or killed. It's just a bad situation. But David wanted to make it very clear. He said, the city's been great letting us stay here and this and that. I asked him, would you be receptive to speaking to somebody like a counselor or a therapist? And he said, yes, of course. So that I found very encouraging. Part of me was very angry that there are not professionals, especially through our contractor, that have already gotten that ball rolling and have tried to. But I did. I started making some phone calls immediately and have been in contact with people. Now, I know how the city works. Just after this video comes out, they'll probably be forced to. And I hope so. I hope so. I don't want to see them just be tossed out of the park. That's not going to solve anything because they'll have to go somewhere else and set up a new encampment. I want to see them get the help that they need. These individuals, he said at different times have all been working, taking jobs. They were painting and doing some cleanup jobs and things like that. So these are people who are willing and able to work. I think they do need some medical attention. I think they need a good night's sleep, or more than one, a safe place to be. I just can't imagine living out in the elements like that, seeing that they were doing laundry in the brook and hanging it's just the whole thing was just horrible. And, if you look at the photos, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see that in the park. But anyway, I'm going to do a lot of follow through on this, but that is what happened. And it's brought my attention back to that site. I haven't been able to, there's so many things that, so many organizations and people reach out to me for lots of things, and I try to help in every way I can with everything. I'm big on any events and things for our veterans, but really everything. And there's a lot of other things that I need to be covering, and I'm going to. The body camera issue with the PPD, the situation at our BMC. I've had people contact me about that, about this mandate that they're threatening to fire, I guess, nurses if they don't continue to get these boosters. There's a lot going on that needs a lot more attention and coverage. But this situation at Springside Park needs to be addressed for once and for all. It needs to be. And it needs to be done the right way. It needs to be done with compassion towards these people, their fellow citizens. David is not, the individual we spoke to is not somebody who, everyone says, oh, they're shipping him in from out of town. He is a resident here. He has family that lives here. This is one of our residents, and this cannot be happening. It can't be happening. When I asked them about, going to the bathroom, relieving themselves, and he did tell me that they go in plastic bags and they haul it out of the park every day. It was hard for me to come home and go to bed last night and climb into my bed and turn the TV on and think about how they're living. So I have been in touch with people, and we're going to get that ball rolling. And again, usually when I do videos like this, if they gain a lot of traction, the city will then react. So we'll see where this goes. But I am going to do everything in my power to help these individuals, to not punish them, but to help them. And our park cannot be, the condition and the amount of stuff in there was overwhelming. It was overwhelming to see it. That can't be happening in Pittsfield. I get that homelessness is a complicated issue. It's a national epidemic or a global epidemic. But we have a small population in homelessness here. And there's a multitude of reasons why it has happened. When I talked about when the city councilors were saying how great it was that home values were up, and I said, what are they talking about? And this was last year when they said, well, home values, you're gaining equity. No, it was inflation. And the shortage in the housing market and inflation was causing these home values to go way up beyond what they were worth. And rates were still low enough where people were buying them. Well, as I was saying over a year ago, that's not going to hold. And the feds have been doing the central bank has been doing rate increases. And now housing sales are at a 21-year low. I don't know what the exact numbers are here in Pittsfield, but nationally, it's a 21-year low. It is becoming more and more difficult for someone to qualify for an FHA, to be able to afford to buy. And what does that do? That pushes the rental market up. because now that becomes that much more competitive, and people are asking unbelievable amounts on these rental properties, and that is going to be a huge contributor to homelessness. And it is. It is a complex issue, but it's not an unmanageable one. We live in a city of a population between 42 and 43,000. We have about 100 people in homelessness. You can't handle that? Then there's a failure on the city's part. What is happening in Springside Park is 4 to 5 people, and look at the condition of the park. Not acceptable. It's not acceptable, and it's a failure on the city's part. So it needs to be addressed, and it will be. So I will be doing a follow-up on this, at several of them, so there'll be a lot coming forward with that. And there's a ton of other stuff to cover. Like I said, the body camera issues with the PPD. There's other organizations that I'm going to be working on. And starting next week, or the end of this week, I've got a lot going on with business promos that'll be coming out. This is the time of year I do all that. And I've got something special planned for our bars it's been on hold just because I've been overwhelmed with the amount of events and things. So there is a lot coming up. So again, that is it for now. I'll be doing follow-ups as soon as possible, but take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll catch you all in the next day or two.